Speaking of friends, other friends will be joining us shortly by live stream, and this is our opportunity as we gather with one another to get ourselves from this time of all that brings us to this day, all the moments that have been part of this week and even the moments that have been part of this day, trying to bring ourselves into this circle. So we take a deep breath and we let go of all of that as we sing ourselves into community with a prayer to friends old and new. I warmly welcome you to this circle that gathers again and again, but is never the same twice. We've never been this particular circle before, nor will we be again. We welcome those of you who gather with us in this room, those of you who join us online from across this country and in other places in the world as well. As we constitute together, those who are here and those who are with us via technology, we create a particular spiritual community on an unrepeatable day. And it matters that you have chosen to take your place in this circle. And you have a place, a unique place. And you're welcome whether you have never been here before, haven't been here in a long time, or you're usually here when this circle takes its shape. Whatever our language, whatever our ethnicity, whatever our religion, whether we have one or not, whatever our spirituality, whatever our sexual orientation or our gender identity, whatever our age or stage of life, we are welcome. We belong. We need one another. And we are here to create spiritual community with each other. And we gather in this ancient configuration, a configuration of a circle, a formation that signifies equality without hierarchy, a circle that's never closed and can always be expanded. And we gather with gratitude on this land, acknowledging that it is storied land, the ancestral lands of Cree peoples, of so many different peoples, Métis people who have made their home here for generations, other tribes and nations for whom this has been a traveling route, a meeting place. And we all, as people of Treaty 6, we come to honor the culture and the traditions and the spirituality and the language of our Indigenous brothers and sisters whose story is woven into this land. And as we do so, we also acknowledge our responsibility to be partners, transcending the wounds of our history and seeking healing and reconciliation with one another. We light this candle, as we always do. It seems like it's just the same old circle, the same old gathering, the same old candle. But it's a circle that will never be repeated. It's a flame that will never be repeated. It's a moment we will never have again, but we have it now. And we seize it with gratitude, and we inhabit it with wonder. And with one another, we invite each other into the quest for that for which our spirit longs. We invite each other in song. Maybe we tell stories because we are stories. And we invariably recognize ourselves in stories. So here's one where you might find yourself somewhere among these characters. At Grandpa's house, things were always the same. Grandpa always had the same thing for breakfast, and every day he read the paper. And he always said the same thing. Could be worse. Grandpa, that awful dog ate this sofa cushion. Could be worse. No matter what, Grandpa always said the same thing. I got a splinter in my finger, Grandpa. Could be worse. My bike has a flat tire. My sneakers have a hole in them. And I lost my kite in a tree, Grandpa. Could be worse. One day, Marianne said, "How come Grandpa never says anything interesting?" "I guess it's because nothing interesting ever happens to him," said Louis. The next morning at breakfast, Grandpa said something different. He said, "Guess what? Last night when I was asleep, a large bird pulled me out of bed and took me for a long ride and dropped me in the mountains. I heard a noise. It was a snowman with a huge snowball which he threw at me. And I got inside the snowball, which rolled down the mountain. It finally landed in the desert and it began to melt. I walked across the desert. Suddenly, I heard footsteps coming nearer and nearer. And a moment later, I got squished by a giant something or other. And before I could get up, I heard a strange noise. A great blob of marmalade was coming towards me, and it chased me across the desert until I crashed into something tall. It was sort of like an ostrich and very cross. It gave me a big kick. I went up into some storm clouds, almost got hit by lightning, fell out of the clouds, and landed in the ocean. I sank about a mile down to the bottom, and I saw an enormous goldfish coming at me. I swam away as fast as I could, and I hid under a cup that had air in it. And when it was safe, I crawled out. I started to walk, but my foot got stuck in the grip of a giant lobster. I didn't know what to do. But just then, a big squid came along and squirted black ink all over the lobster, and I escaped and hitched a ride on a sea turtle that was going to the top for a bit of sunshine. When I was fortunate to find a piece of toast floating by, and I rode it to shore, where I discovered a newspaper. I quickly folded it into an airplane and flew across the sea and back home again to bed. Now, what do you think of that? Could be worse, they said. This is one of those wonderful tales that reminds us to look at the most ordinary things with the most extraordinary eyes for possibilities we couldn't imagine. If kids are with us today, you're welcome to find some activities at the activity table where Kids Spirit and Youth Cafe are taking a little break for the summer, and you're welcome to stay in the circle with us or to engage the activities at the table at any time. We're going to sing with one another about some of those ordinary, extraordinary things. in a collection of poems entitled Poetry of Presence, an anthology of mindfulness poems, comes this poem from Albert Hufstekler, a poem entitled The Cure. We think we get over things. We don't get over things. Or say, we get over the measles, but not a broken heart. We need to make that distinction. The things that become part of our experience never become less a part of our experience. How can I say it? The way to get over a life is to die. Short of that, you move with it. Let the pain be pain. Not in the hope that it will vanish, but in the faith that it will fit in, find its place in the shape of things, and be then not any less pain, but true to form. Because anything natural has an inherent shape and will flow towards it. And a life is as natural as a leaf. That's what we're looking for. Not the end of a thing, but the shape of it. Wisdom is seeing the shape of your life without obliterating, getting over a single instance of it. In the thoughts of this contemporary seeker,
the writings we receive from our Jewish heritage in the Hebrew Scriptures includes the writing of an anonymous philosopher who takes on the persona of the King of Solomon from the 10th century before the Common Era. These are the words that open the book of Ecclesiastes from the wisdom literature of the Bible. The words of the teacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. Emptiness of emptiness, says the teacher. Everything is empty and void of meaning. What do people gain from all the work at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes, a generation comes, and the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hurries to the place where it rises again. The wind blows to the south and goes to the north, and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they continue to flow. All things are wearisome more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. What has been will be. What has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, "Oh, see, this is new"? It has already been in the ages before us. I, the teacher, when king over Israel in Jerusalem, applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that has been given to human beings to be busy with. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and see, all is emptiness and chasing after wind. In the thoughts of this ancient seeker, may we find wisdom for our living.
I often think of a story that a friend told me about her aging parents. When she came back home for a visit with her mother and father, who were then in their early 80s, her dad took her aside privately and he lamented to her that he was having dinner earlier and earlier every day. That it wasn't unusual now to be having dinner at 3:30 in the afternoon. And what my friend discovered was that the increasingly early dinner hour was often being driven by her mother, the cook in the family, who just wanted to get it over with. I think about that story often because, left to my own tendencies, if I'm not careful, I spend a lot of my life wanting to get things over with. I remember when I was practicing law and I would look at my day timer to see what was the next thing I just had to get through. And I'd find myself thinking, when I just get that trial over with, when I just get that appeal done, when I just get that opinion written, when I just get that appointment over with. And this kind of thinking is insidious because it doesn't just infiltrate our work. It becomes a way of life, plowing through time, as though we had to push through everything in life as an obstacle to get to something that's always eluding us. And I don't think I'm alone in this. Because for each of us, the circumstances might be different. It might be when the war is over, or when treatment is finished, or when I get through school, or when I retire, or when we get a new administration south of a particular border, or when I get my health back, or whenever my circumstance in life is different, when we get this or that over with, then life will be different, life will be better, life will be life. And then that old philosopher comes along, a long, anonymous voice that speaks out of an ancient wisdom tradition, a voice that we have kept among all the varied voices in the texts of the Jewish Christian tradition. A voice that opens the book of Ecclesiastes with that despairing verdict that actually life is just one damn thing after another. Nothing of nothingness, all is nothingness. What do we gain from all our work at which we toil under the sun? A generation goes, a generation comes. The sun rises, the sun goes down, the wind goes round and round, the streams run to the sea, and the sea never gets full. Everything's wearisome. It's all been before. There's nothing new under the sun. Whew, how's that for a load of despair? And a bleak verdict on the enterprise we call life. And whether we're optimists or pessimists or realists or pragmatists or skeptics or what have you, we all feel the wheel of life's turning. We clean the dishes so we can dirty them and clean them again. We do the laundry to wash and wear and wash again. We all live in circles of routine, patterns that repeat themselves again and again, where we do, undo, do it again. And we can sort of feel like we're cast in our own script of Groundhog Day. You remember that movie from 1993? Where the main character is trapped in the same day, having to repeat it over and over again until he gets it right before he can move to a new day.
Groundhog time.
1,000 people freezing their butts off waiting to worship a rat.
Weatherman Phil Connors is spending the day in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania.
Phil? Ned! Ned Ryerson. I did the whistling belly button trick at the high school talent show.
Bing!
Bang!
But Phil's about to find out he's not just stuck in Puxatawney.
Will you be checking out today, Mr. Connors?
Chance of departure today, 100%.
He's stuck
Groundhog Day!
in Groundhog Day.
I'm reliving the same day over and over.
Phil?
Ned Ryerson?
Bang!
Do you ever have deja vu, Mrs. Lancaster?
I don't think so, but I could check with the kitchen.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again?
At first, he was a little anxious.
Phil? What?
Will you be checking out today, Mr. Connors?
I'd say the chance of departure is 80%.
But now,
We could do whatever we want.
he's discovering the possibilities
Don't you worry about cholesterol?
Why?
and living life like there's no tomorrow.
Phil Connors!
Ned!
Because there isn't.
I am an immortal. I have been stabbed, shot, burned, frozen, electrocuted. I'm a god.
You're God.
I'm a god. I'm not the god.
He's out of his gourd.
But to get what his heart wants most
What are you looking for, Phil? A date for the weekend?
means living this day over again till he gets it right.
Believe it or not, I studied 19th century French poetry.
What a waste of time.
I studied 19th century French poetry.
La fille qui j'aimerais.
You speak French.
Oui.
Bill Murray, Andy McDowell,
To the groundhog.
I always drink to world peace. Well, what should we drink to?
I like to say a prayer and drink to world peace. Don't drive angry. Don't drive angry.
He might be okay.
Life has a funny way of repeating itself.
What did you do today?
Oh, same old, same old.
I was cutting our grass this week, trying to stay with that boring pattern of walking up and down the yard with overlapping straight lines, just like the week before. And then I began to ask myself, how would I do this differently if I thought about this routine in a new way? If I could remember that I had never done this before and never would do this again under exactly this same sky. That those clouds above me have never been these clouds before and will never be these clouds again. That the cells in my body are different. They've been changed. They're not the same ones that composed me a week earlier. That I've had conversations and experiences and time with friends and strangers that have made me someone that I wasn't the last time I did this. How would I do this differently if I remembered that these are not the same blades of grass I stood on last week and they will be different again next week? You get the idea. In the midst of routine, there is an invitation to awaken to the fact that there is nothing new under the sun except that everything is new under the sun. But the question is, how do we live our lives without getting over them? Or just getting through them to get out of them? We all know we don't get out of this life alive. But that's not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is staying alive to life while we're in it. Fortunately, that same sage that gave us all is nothing more than chasing after the wind, fortunately, he kept writing. And eventually he spoke some words that were easier to sing. Words that Pete Seeger and so many other musicians would set to music. For everything, there is a time, and a time for every matter under the sun, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to be hurt and a time to heal, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance. He began to see that there was a grace woven into the routines of our lives, that no single circumstance or season defines our lives forever. And there is something to stay alive to in those repeating patterns that shape our lives. And these routines, they are the natural shape of things. The joys and the sorrows, the mundane and the spectacular, the loves and the losses we experience are the natural shape of our lives. And in the wisdom of the contemporary poet, the cure for life is to live it. Not to get over it, but to get on with it. To receive the shape of things as grace to embrace. To be painfully and poignantly awake to. This is how Albert Hofstadter put it. The way to get over a life is to die. Short of that, you move with it. Let the pain be pain, not in the hope that it will vanish, but in the faith that it will fit in, find its place in the shape of things. Wisdom is seeing the shape of your life without getting over a single instance of it. The best teachers of that wisdom are those who have experienced the things we never get over. The losses that break our hearts and change us forever. And somewhere, the gift of routine gentles us back into the grace of getting on with the new shape of things. a shape that will reorder the chaos into a new form. Maybe that's why, when it seems like nothing could be worse, the familiar patterns, the routines of our days, the cycle and seasons, the turning of time, those ordinary, routine things that punctuate our days and our weeks hold a certain power to invite us back to life again. To wake from the dream or the nightmare and find strength and comfort in the shape of things, in the routine that seems to be the same. Bread and marmalade for breakfast, the newspaper and coffee, those things that seem to be the same, but are never the same if we'll let ourselves be made new again and again. If we'll let ourselves stay awake to the ways that everything is new under the sun. as music evokes the memory of those who have raised us up, those who have given us guidance, those who have lit a path before us. We remember the friends of Jesus who saw that in him. He was one who raised them toward a new vision of how to be a beloved community. And because of that, in the stories that are handed down to us, we hear them ask him, "Teach us to pray." And for many years, we have found ways of sharing a pattern of a prayer that has been attributed to Jesus of Nazareth, a prayer we call by many different names: Prayer of Jesus, the Lord's Prayer. And each of us in our time and in our generation find ways to speak that vision, those hopes, those aspirations. This is one of those ways, taking the pattern of the prayer of Jesus and the words of Bob Hetherington. We offer these thoughts as our way of strengthening our intentions to live as we have learned from those who have lit the path before us. We pray with one another. We open to the sacredness at the heart of all, called by many names. We open to the deep mystery we trust to be love. May we be faithful to the vision of building a beloved community on earth. May there be daily bread to nourish all hunger, forgiveness for the harm we have done, and the capacity to forgive those who have hurt us. May we not feel abandoned in hard times, but find the strength to meet each moment and the wisdom to walk in the light of gratitude. For the light of love is with us now and forever. Amen.
Over the past few weeks, we have been collecting school supplies for Lebanon, for the refugees there. Did you know that the United Church Mission and Service Fund, through its partnership with the Middle East Council of Churches, is already a response, part of a response to the refugee crisis there? The United Nations Works and Relief Agency for Palestine has nearly 500,000 refugees registered in Lebanon, and that goes back to 1950. But there are also at least 1 million other refugees there from Syria. Lebanon has the highest ratio of refugees to citizens of any country in the world, and refugees often meet with harassment and hostility. But the government doesn't allow formal refugee camps. Needless to say, there are lots of informal ones. The country's capacity to cope is stretched to the breaking point. Approximately half the refugees there are of school age. Of those, only about half are able to attend school. Classes are held in 2 shifts a day so that they can double the number that can be accommodated. As Dawn has reminded us over the past month or so, for these children, school supplies are in very short supply. And for many young people, the future looks very bleak. With the goal of building bridges and helping people stand together, the Middle East Council of Churches is working to help alleviate some of the alienation and suspicion among these young people. By bringing together groups of youth ages 15 to 22, they hope to establish a practical model for Muslim-Christian dialogue. These young people get together to talk, to work, to play together, and to lay the foundation for new and positive ways of understanding and seeing one another beyond traditional prejudices and boundaries. We here in Edmonton at Southminster Steiner United Church, those joining us in Saskatoon and elsewhere, can be a part of this work through donations to the United Church Mission and Service Fund and its partnership with the Middle East Council of Churches.
We contribute to all the work we do and to the Mission and Service Fund of the United Church of Canada in the ways in which we contribute our financial support in this spiritual community. You're invited to place donations in the box at the back, to request a set of envelopes to enable you to give easily week to week, month to month, or to donate online at our website, or to donate by pre-authorized remittances, or to purchase grocery cards, which are sold each week, and a portion of which comes back to us in revenue to support the work we do together with one another. We thank you for all the ways that you contribute your time, your financial resources, your gifts, your energy, your capacities, your presence. We go from this time treasuring the light of a new day, the light of routine, and the gifts that are disguised in that routine. We go in hope, in love, in peace. We go together that we might celebrate the sacred in the ordinary and never get over our lives, just get on with living as faithfully, as truthfully, as respectfully, as lovingly as we possibly can.